She knocked on a stranger's mansion door, selling candy to help her sick mom. But when she stepped inside and saw a framed photo of her mother on the wall, everything changed. "Why is my mom's picture in your house?" she asked the billionaire owner, and what he said next left them both in shock. Before we continue with this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Oh, and don't forget to comment below where you're watching us from. We love to know that. The sun was burning above Lily as she walked slowly along the pavement of a rich neighborhood, holding a small basket full of homemade candies. She was only 10 years old, but she walked with the weight of someone much older. Her feet were bare and dirty from hours on the streets, and her stomach had been empty since the night before. She didn't complain. Every step she took was for her mother and grandmother, both sick and barely surviving. Her mother couldn't work, and her grandmother was in the hospital, needing medicine they couldn't afford. Selling sweets was all Lily could do. She went from house to house, knocking on big doors, hoping someone would buy something. Most people ignored her. A few said no and shut the door, without a second glance. She didn't give up. Her mother had always told her to stay strong. Then she saw the biggest gate she'd ever seen. Behind it stood a huge mansion surrounded by trees. She stood still, staring for a moment, then walked to the gate and rang the bell. Seconds passed and Lily thought maybe no one was home. Then she heard footsteps and the gate slowly opened. A tall man in a neat black suit stood in front of her. His face looked serious, and his hair was perfectly combed. He looked like someone important. Lily didn't know who he was, but she spoke politely like her mother taught her. "Sir, would you like to buy a treat to help my grandma?" she asked, her voice soft but clear. The man raised an eyebrow, confused, but didn't speak right away. He looked at her, probably noticing her thin arms and tired face. After a short silence, he gave a small smile and nodded. "Wait here," he said, and walked back inside the mansion. Lily waited by the gate, but her eyes couldn't help following him. The door had been left slightly open. She took a careful step forward. Then another. The inside looked like something out of a dream. The floors were shiny. Everything looked clean and expensive. She had never seen a place like that before. Her curiosity pulled her a bit farther inside the house. She didn't mean to go far. Just a few steps, just enough to see. The air was cooler inside, and everything smelled like flowers and fresh polish. There were big paintings on the walls, and tall furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum. Her eyes moved from one shiny object to another, until she stopped in front of a photo, hanging in a gold frame. It was old, slightly faded, but clear enough. Her heart began to beat faster. She stared at the woman in the photo, young, smiling, and holding the arm of the same man who had just gone inside. The woman was her mother. There was no doubt. Lily had seen enough pictures of her mom from the past to recognize that face. Her mom looked happy in the photo, like she used to before she got sick. Lily's legs felt weak. She didn't understand what the photo meant. Why would her mother be in a picture inside a mansion like this? A few seconds later, the man returned with money in his hand. At the moment he saw where Lily was standing and what she was looking at, everything changed. He stopped walking. His face went pale, and the hand holding the money dropped slightly. Lily didn't move. She pointed at the photo and looked up at him. "Why is my mom's photo in your house?" she asked, her voice shaking a little. The man didn't answer right away. His eyes were fixed on the photo. His mouth opened like he was about to say something, but no words came out. The silence between them felt heavy. Finally, he looked down at her, his expression full of confusion and something else. Shock, pain, maybe even guilt. Lily watched him carefully, waiting but still not sure what she had stepped into. What did this photo mean? Why hadn't her mother ever mentioned this place? Or this man? William Carter took a step forward and looked at Lily more closely. His eyes moved across her face, as if trying to confirm something. "What's your name?" he asked Lily. She replied, "Lily Thompson." At that moment something changed in his face. His jaw tightened. His eyes went wide again, then softened. He seemed to recognize the name. Lily could feel the tension building in the air. But she didn't say anything else. She wanted answers, but she also felt scared. She wasn't supposed to be here. She was just trying to sell candy. But now she was standing in front of a photo that connected her sick mother to a rich stranger. William slowly bent down to her level. "Your mother's name," he said, "is Sarah Thompson." Lily nodded, "Yes, sir." William stood up again and turned to look at the photo one more time. His hands were shaking slightly. Whatever this photo meant, it wasn't something simple. William walked to the couch nearby and sat down, still holding the money but not offering it anymore. His eyes stayed fixed on the floor. Lily stayed near the photo, not sure what to do next. Part of her wanted to run out the door. Another part wanted to stay and hear everything. The silence continued for a while before William finally spoke. "She never told me," he said quietly. Lily didn't know what he meant. "Told you what?" she asked. William looked at her again. "That I had a daughter." Lily blinked, confused what she asked. William looked more serious now. "I was with your mother a long time ago. We lost touch. I never knew she had a child." His voice was steady, but Lily could hear something breaking behind it. Her heart was beating fast. Was this man saying he was her father? It didn't make sense. Her mother had never said anything about him. But now everything felt upside down. She didn't know what to believe. William finally stood up and walked back toward the photo. He looked at it for a long moment, then turned back to Lily. "How is she?" he asked. Lily looked down. "Sick," she said, "and my grandma too. We don't have money for medicine." Her voice cracked. William nodded slowly. He seemed lost in thought, like he was trying to process everything at once. "Come with me," he said gently. Lily hesitated. "I'm not going to hurt you," he added. I want to help." Lily followed him to the front room, where he handed her more money than she'd ever seen in her life. "Take this to your mother," he said, "and tell her William wants to talk." Lily held the money tightly. Her hands were shaking. Everything had changed so fast. Just that morning she had left her tiny shack to sell candy. Now she had found something much bigger. A truth that had been hidden. She turned to leave, still shocked, her mind full of questions. As she stepped back outside, the sun was still hot, and the world around her looked the same. But everything inside her had changed. She had come looking for a few coins to help her family, and ended up discovering a secret that could change their lives forever. She walked away from the mansion with the money clutched in her hands and a storm of thoughts in her mind. Her feet still hurt, and she was still tired and hungry. But now there was something new inside her. Something she couldn't name, maybe hope, maybe fear. She looked back once at the big house behind her. The door had already closed, but Lily knew that door had opened more than just a path into a mansion. It had opened something in her past, something that would not stay hidden anymore. William stood in the middle of the room, frozen. His eyes stuck on the photo Lily had just pointed at. His hands were still holding the money he had brought for the candy, but now he had forgotten about it. He was staring at the photo, like it was the first time he had ever seen it, even though it had been hanging in that hallway for years. Then he turned slowly toward Lily, and with a shaky voice he said, "This woman, she was my fiancée. She died over 10 years ago." Lily's eyebrows pulled together, confused. "She's my mom," she replied, her voice small but firm. The words hit William hard. His legs gave out, and he dropped onto the sofa, like someone had pushed him down. He put both hands on his face and stayed there, not saying a word. The room went completely quiet. Lily just stood there, holding her candy tray, her eyes wide. She wasn't sure what had just happened, but something felt wrong. Very wrong. She looked at the door, her body tensed. Lily could feel something inside her twisting. Everything was happening too fast. And now this strange man, who lived in a mansion and said he had once been her mom's fiancé, looked like he was about to break down. Lily didn't know what a fiancé really meant, but she understood the man had cared about her mom. A long time ago, but how could her mother be dead if she was alive right now? And why did this man believe she had died? She felt fear growing inside her. Maybe this was a mistake. Maybe she shouldn't have come inside. Without saying another word, Lily grabbed her candy tray tightly and took a step back. "Wait, please," William said, trying to stand. His voice was louder now, but still shaking. "Tell me more. Where is she? Where is Emily?" But Lily was already running. Her feet hit the smooth floor fast, and she didn't look back. She passed through the door and out into the sun, where the heat slapped her face again. She ran as fast as she could down the street, heart pounding, confused and scared. William rushed to the door, but by the time he stepped outside, she was already gone. He looked around, trying to see where she had gone, but there was nothing. Just the street, the trees and the gate swinging slightly open. His hands were trembling now. He closed the door slowly and leaned his back against it. His mind couldn't keep up with what just happened. The girl said her name was Lily. She said Emily was her mother, and that meant Emily had been alive all this time. But how was that possible? His own mother had told him about the crash. She had even shown him the funeral arrangements. He remembered sitting at the front of the church, unable to cry because the pain was too heavy. It was a closed casket. No one ever saw the body. He had accepted it, even though a part of him had never felt complete. He had lived with that hole in his chest for more than 10 years, never married, never forgot, and now this. He walked back to the couch and sat down again, this time slower. He placed the money on the table and stared at it like it meant something. His brain felt like it was spinning in circles. He thought about Lily's face, the shape of her nose, her eyes, the way she spoke. There was something familiar about her, something that made his chest tighten. It wasn't just her voice or her hair, it was everything. She reminded him so much of Emily, like a small copy of someone he had loved more than anything. Could it really be true? Could Emily have survived the crash and somehow ended up living a completely different life, away from everything and everyone? And if that was true, why didn't she ever contact him? Why didn't she tell him she was alive? Why did she let him believe she was dead? His hands gripped the edge of the couch. He needed answers. But the only person who could give them had just run out of his house. The rest of the day, William couldn't think of anything else. He didn't take any calls. He didn't open his laptop. His staff knocked a few times, asking if he needed anything, but he told them to leave him alone. His thoughts were all on Lily, on her voice, on what she said. The question kept spinning in his mind, like a broken record. Was it really possible? And if it was, why would someone lie about Emily's death? He remembered that it had been his mother who gave him all the information back then. She had told him about the accident. She had arranged the funeral. She had handled everything. That alone made a strange feeling grow in his stomach. He never asked many questions at the time. He had been too hurt, too broken. But now, looking back, everything felt like a blur. He couldn't even remember seeing a report. No police documents, no real proof. Just a story. A story he had believed, because it came from someone he trusted. As night came, William stood by the window, watching the empty street outside. The sky had turned dark, and the mansion lights reflected off the windows. He thought about what to do next. He needed to find Lily. He needed to talk to her again. He needed to know the full truth. She mentioned her mother was sick. Maybe he could use that information. Maybe someone in the local hospital would know something. He couldn't just sit and wait. Not now, not after what happened. His heart still hurt from the shock. But under all that pain, there was something else, a spark. Hope, a chance that Emily hadn't died. That she had lived. And maybe, just maybe, he had a daughter. The thought made his hands sweat. His world had been flipped upside down in a single afternoon. He had spent years stuck in grief. But now, a ghost from the past had returned. And this time, he wasn't going to let her vanish again. He had to find out the truth no matter what it took. In the days that followed, William couldn't concentrate on anything. His entire routine fell apart. Meetings were cancelled, phone calls ignored, and meals left untouched. His mind was stuck on one thing: Lily. Her face, her voice, the photos she had pointed at, all played over and over in his head, like a loop he couldn't escape. He needed answers. He needed to know if what she said was true. The thought that Emily, the woman he was supposed to marry, could have been alive all this time and raised a daughter alone. It didn't leave him. He hired his private security team to search the lower-income areas of the city, hoping they could find a girl selling candy on the streets. He gave them every detail he could remember: her height, her hair, her age, even the clothes she wore that day. The team asked around, checked markets, visited clinics, but always came back with the same answer: no one had seen her. William grew more frustrated every day. He couldn't stand the waiting, the not knowing. While William searched non-stop, life for Lily stayed the same. Every morning she woke up early, packed her candy into a small tray, and walked barefoot through the city. Her mom, Emily, was still very sick. Some days she could barely stand up. Their house was small, old, and falling apart. The roof leaked when it rained, and the floor was cold at night. They didn't have much food, so Lily did what she could. She never told her mom about the mansion, about the man who had seen the picture, or about what he had said. She didn't know how to explain it. Part of her was scared. Part of her didn't even know if it had really happened, the way she remembered. All she knew was that her mom had always told her the same thing: that her father died before she was born. Lily had never questioned it too deeply until now. After seeing that photo, everything felt strange. Her mother never talked about her past. It was like her life only began the day Lily was born. Emily avoided all conversations about her younger years. Whenever Lily asked questions about her father, or anything from before she was born, Emily would get quiet. She'd say things like, "It's better not to talk about it," or "The past is behind us." Lily didn't push too hard. But now those answers weren't enough anymore. Something didn't add up. Why would her mother's photo be in that big house? Why would the man say she was his fiancée? Lily started watching her mom more closely. Every time Emily coughed or looked tired, Lily felt a mix of sadness and frustration. She wished she could do more. Selling candy helped a little, but not enough. Medicine was expensive, and doctors didn't give much help when they saw how poor they were. One night, as they sat together eating a small piece of bread, Lily almost asked about William. The words reached her lips, but she couldn't speak them. She looked at her mom's tired eyes and decided to stay quiet for now, but the questions in her heart kept growing. Back in his mansion, William was running out of patience. He didn't trust silence. He needed to do something himself. He went up to the attic, a place he hadn't entered in years. The air was dusty, and old boxes were stacked in every corner. Inside were memories, photos, clothes, letters, things he had once shared with Emily. He opened one box after another, his hands shaking as he flipped through old papers and photos. Some made him smile, others made him stop and stare. Then he found a letter. It was old, handwritten, and the paper had turned yellow. The handwriting was Emily's. He read it slowly. At first it was normal things about missing him, feeling confused. But then one sentence stopped him cold. If you knew about the pregnancy, maybe things would have been different. His hands froze, his heart started racing. Pregnant Emily was pregnant. He read the sentence again. making sure he wasn't imagining it. It was right there. She had been carrying his child when she disappeared, and no one had ever told him. William sat down on the attic floor, still holding the letter. Everything inside him turned upside down. If Emily had been pregnant, then that meant Lily was his daughter, his own daughter, alive out there, struggling to survive while he lived in a giant house with everything. He thought about all the years he had mourned Emily, all the birthdays, the lonely holidays, the quiet evenings where he imagined what life would have been like if she hadn't died. But she hadn't died, she had left. For some reason he still didn't understand, and she had raised their daughter alone. William's head filled with more questions than answers. Why did she leave? Who told him she had died? And why had no one ever mentioned a child? He had believed what his mother told him back then. She said Emily died in a car crash, closed casket funeral. He never questioned it, but now looking back, it didn't make sense anymore. So many pieces were missing, so many lies had been told. And now the truth was starting to show itself. That night William didn't sleep. He stayed in his study rereading the letter, trying to remember every moment from that time in his life, every conversation, every little clue he might have missed. He started to think back to the way his mother acted when Emily disappeared. She had been cold, firm, and in control. She handled all the funeral details, told him it was best not to see the body, said it would only cause more pain. He had trusted her, but now he was beginning to doubt everything. What if Emily didn't die? What if she was told to leave? What if someone made sure she stayed away? William's chest hurt from all the thoughts crowding his mind. He had spent years building his life, his business, his empire, but none of it mattered now. There was a girl out there, Lily, who could be his child. And if she, then she had shaken the walls of his world. Without even knowing it, he had to find her. He had to speak to Emily. He had to know the truth. Lily stood outside the mansion gate again, holding her candy tray. Her heart was beating fast, but this time it wasn't from fear. It was from determination. She needed to go back. She needed to find out the truth. After everything that had happened, after running away from William the first time, she couldn't stop thinking about what he said. She couldn't stop thinking about the photo. Something inside her told her that this man was part of a story her mother had never told. So she returned. She walked through the same streets, past the same tall trees, and stopped at the same massive gate. This time she didn't hesitate. She opened the gate and stepped inside. As she reached the garden, she saw him. William was sitting alone near some flowers, reading papers. She walked closer and called out, "Mr." He looked up, surprised to see her. For a second he didn't say anything, just stared at her. Then he stood up and gave a small, nervous smile. "You came back," he said. "Come in, please." But Lily didn't waste time looking around this time. She walked straight to the picture hanging on the wall. She stood in front of it and pointed again. "That's my mom. I'm sure of it," she said. William walked over and stood beside her. He looked at the photo closely, like he was trying to see something deeper. He nodded slowly, swallowing hard. His voice was low. "That's Emily," he said. "She was everything to me." Then he motioned for her to follow him. They walked into another room. His office. He opened a drawer and pulled out a folder. Inside were more photos. He placed them on the table one by one. In every photo there was Emily. Younger, but clearly the same woman Lily lived with. She was smiling, happy, and always close to William. There were pictures of them laughing, hugging, sitting on a beach. Lily stared at the images quietly, feeling strange. It was like looking into a part of her mother's life she had never known existed. Then something caught Lily's eye. In one of the photos, her mother was wearing a necklace, a small heart-shaped pendant with a blue stone in the center. Lily leaned in closer and pointed at it. "That necklace," she said, "my mom still wears it every day." William froze. He knew that necklace well. It was the one he gave Emily the night he asked her to marry him. He had picked it out himself, saved up for weeks just to buy it. Seeing it again after all these years made his chest tighten. "I gave her that," he whispered, "the night I proposed." Lily didn't speak. She just nodded, looking at the picture again. For her, the necklace was always just a thing her mother wore. She had never known it came from someone important. Now it meant something else. William sat down slowly, as if the weight of what she had said was too much. His hands trembled slightly and his eyes looked glossy. He took a deep breath and asked, "Your mom?" "She's alive," Lily answered softly. "Yes, she lives with me. It's just the two of us." He didn't know what to say. So many thoughts were rushing through his mind. If Emily was alive, and this girl was really her daughter, then Lily had to be his child. There was no other explanation. He had never stopped loving Emily. He had never stopped thinking about the life they could have had together. And now, standing in front of him was a piece of that life, breathing and real. It made him feel sick and hopeful at the same time. Sick because of all the years lost. Hopeful because maybe, just maybe, there was still time to fix something. "She never told me she was pregnant," he said, his voice shaking. "No one told me anything." Lily watched him carefully. She didn't know how to feel this man. Rich and serious might be her father, but she barely knew him. All she knew was her mother had struggled for years, alone with no help. And now she could see pain in his face, but also confusion. He looked broken and desperate to understand. William leaned forward, putting his elbows on his knees. He covered his face with his hands, and sat like that for a moment. When he finally looked up, his eyes were red. "I don't understand," he said. "Why would she disappear? Why wouldn't she tell me?" Lily shook her head. "She never talks about the past," she said. "Whenever I ask about my dad, she says he died before I was born." William looked away. That lie hurt more than anything else. Not because it made him angry at Emily, but because he realized how deep the fear or pain must have been for her to tell such a thing, to erase him completely. "Where do you live?" he asked gently. Lily gave a rough idea of the neighborhood, the poor area where she sold candy. William wrote it down without saying anything more. He didn't want to scare her, but he knew what he had to do. He had to see Emily. He had to look her in the eye and hear her side of the story. He couldn't rest until he did. They sat in silence for a few minutes. The truth was too big for either of them to fully handle in that moment. William looked at Lily again, really looked at her. The shape of her chin, the way her eyes narrowed when she was serious. It was all Emily. How had he not seen it the first time? How had he missed the signs? Maybe it was because he had buried his memories for so long, convinced that chapter of his life was closed forever. But now it had opened again and he couldn't go back. Lily stood up slowly, holding her candy tray. "I should go," she said. William stood too. He didn't try to stop her this time. He just nodded. "Thank you for coming," he said. "Please tell your mom. Tell Emily that William wants to see her." Lily gave a small nod and walked toward the door. William stayed behind, still trying to make sense of it all. As the door closed behind her, he sat back down, overwhelmed. If everything was true, then that girl was his daughter, and someone had lied to him for over 10 years. Lily walked home slowly, her head full of thoughts she couldn't organize. She held her candy tray tightly, but she didn't care about it anymore. She didn't even know if she had sold anything that day. What she had learned at the mansion was too big to ignore. The man William was kind but confused, shocked and emotional. And he had recognized her mother in the picture. He had even shown Lily more photos. There was no more doubt. Her mother and that man had a past. A serious one. Lily couldn't stop thinking about the necklace either. Her mother had worn it every day, for as long as Lily could remember, but had never said where it came from. Now Lily knew. It came from William, from the man who had asked her mother to marry him. Her feet dragged as she walked through the dirty streets toward their small house. She reached the broken wooden door, pushed it open, and stepped inside. Her mom was lying on the mattress, resting, eyes closed. Lily stood still for a moment, then spoke. "Mom, I need to tell you something." She could see something was wrong. Or maybe something big had happened. Lily looked nervous, pale, and her hands were shaking. "What is it, sweetheart?" Emily asked. Lily took a deep breath. "I went back to that mansion," she said. Emily's body stiffened. "You went there?" she asked, her voice sharp with panic. Lily nodded. She explained everything. The picture in the hallway, the man's reaction, how he had shown her more photos, and how she had seen the necklace in one of them. She told her mom how William had asked about her, and how she had told him the truth. Emily listened without interrupting, her face losing color with every word. When Lily finished, the room was silent. Emily's hands were shaking, and her eyes stared into nothing. She slowly sat down on the floor, her back against the wall. "He was the love of my life," she whispered, almost as if she was talking to herself. "He was everything to me, but I had to disappear." "Why, Mom? Why didn't you tell him? Why didn't you tell me anything?" Emily's eyes filled with tears. She looked at her daughter and wiped her face. "Because I was scared. Because I didn't have a choice," she said. Her voice was weak but honest. She took a moment, then began to tell the truth. "When I found out I was pregnant with you, I was still living with your father. We were about to get married. Everything was perfect. But then his mother found out she was a powerful woman. Controlling, cold. She never liked me. She thought I wasn't good enough for him. One night she called me to her house. She told me that if I didn't leave him, she would destroy me, and if I ever told William about the baby, she'd come after me and after you too." Lily's mouth dropped open. "She said she'd kill us if I stayed," Emily said quietly. "I had no choice. I had to run. I didn't even get the chance to explain to William. His mother told him I had died in a car accident. She faked everything. The funeral, the story. I had to disappear to protect you. I thought if I vanished completely, you'd be safe. I lived in fear for years, afraid she would find us anyway. That's why we never stayed in one place too long at first. That's why I never told you anything." Lily stared at her mom in disbelief. "He never knew about me?" she asked. Emily shook her head. "No, he never knew I was pregnant. I left before I could tell him." Tears rolled down Lily's cheeks. She felt sad, angry, confused. She couldn't understand how someone could be so cruel. She lied to him. She said she took everything from him and from us. Emily nodded, her face full of pain. "Yes, she did, and I let her. Because I thought it was the only way to keep you alive." Lily didn't know what to say. She sat there crying, her heart heavy with the truth. The silence in the room was thick. Emily looked down at her hands and rubbed them together. "I've wanted to tell you so many times," she said. "But I didn't want you to live in fear. I didn't want you to think your life started with a threat." Lily was still crying, but she listened carefully. Emily continued. "It was never about shame. I loved your father. He was kind, gentle, and he would have been a good dad. But I couldn't risk your life. So I became someone else. I gave up everything. I worked jobs that paid nothing. I stayed quiet. I kept moving. And when I got sick, I thought maybe that was the end of it. But then you started selling candy. You carried all the weight I should have carried alone. And now you found him." Emily looked at Lily and touched her face. "I'm proud of you, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for the life you've had, for the things you never knew." Lily held her mother's hand tightly, not wanting to let go. They sat like that for a long time, both feeling tired and shaken. Lily thought about William. He had looked so hurt, so lost when she told him her mom was alive. He had no idea he had a daughter. He had been lied to too. Lily felt like all of their lives had been shaped by someone else's decision. One lie had changed everything. "What are we going to do now?" Lily asked softly. Emily didn't answer right away. She looked at the ceiling and took a deep breath. "I don't know," she said, "but I think it's time to stop running. Maybe he deserves to know the truth. Maybe we both deserve it too." Lily nodded slowly. She didn't know what would happen next. Would William forgive her mother? Would he want to be part of their lives? So many questions filled her mind. But one thing was clear. She knew the truth now. She knew where she came from. And even though the past was full of pain and lies, at least the truth had finally come to light. The next morning, William left his mansion early and drove straight to the old estate where his mother used to live. The large house had been mostly empty since her death. It hadn't been touched in a long time. William hadn't felt ready to go there before, but now he needed to. Something inside him said there were still secrets hidden in that house. When he arrived, he unlocked the door with an old key and stepped inside. Everything was just as he remembered. Quiet, cold, and full of his mother's presence. He went from room to room, searching for anything that might explain what she had done. He opened drawers, checked under furniture, and even looked behind paintings. Finally, in her study, he found a small wooden box at the bottom of a locked cabinet. Inside were letters. Most were boring, but one had different handwriting. It was from Emily. His hands trembled as he opened it. The letter read, "If you're reading this, maybe love has finally conquered fear. Protect our daughter." William couldn't hold back his tears. He sat down slowly on the floor, still holding the letter. His chest hurt, not from the pain of the past alone, but from the truth he had just uncovered. His mother had known she had kept this letter. She had known Emily was alive. She had known about the baby, and still she had lied to him. She had told him Emily died. She had arranged a fake funeral. She had controlled everything without any regret. William felt a wave of emotions: shock, betrayal, sadness, but most of all, anger. How could his own mother hide something like this from him? How could she make decisions that would affect his whole life, and then pretend nothing had happened? He wiped his eyes and looked around the room. Everything suddenly felt fake. The luxury, the silence, the things his mother left behind. They meant nothing now. But through the pain, one thing gave him strength. Lily, his daughter. The child he had lost without knowing she ever existed. Now he had to find her again. William got up, put the letter in his coat pocket, and left the house. He didn't need to stay there any longer. That place didn't feel like home anymore. He got in his car and drove straight to the neighborhood where Lily had said she lived. The streets were narrow and full of life. People sat outside their homes, kids played with sticks and stones, and vendors shouted prices for vegetables and bread. William got out of the car and began walking, but he quickly noticed people staring at him. Some looked suspicious, others looked angry. He didn't fit in there, and they could see it. A group of men blocked his path. One of them stepped forward. "You lost?" the man asked, not in a friendly way. William shook his head. "I'm looking for someone. A girl named Lily. She lives around here." The man didn't move. "Too many rich folks come here and bring trouble," he said. "We don't want any of that." William felt stuck. He didn't want to argue. He just wanted to see his daughter. Just as things started to feel tense, a familiar voice cut through the noise. Mr. William. Lily's voice was small but clear. She was standing at the end of the alley, holding a bag of bread. When she saw him, she froze for a second, then ran. The people around stepped aside, watching as she rushed toward him. William opened his arms and Lily jumped into them. Without thinking, he held her tight, closing his eyes, tears rolling down his face. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry I wasn't there when you were born." Lily's arms wrapped around him tighter. "You didn't know," she said softly. "It's not your fault." They stayed like that for a long time. The people around slowly backed away, giving them space. William didn't care who was watching in that moment. Everything else faded. The lies, the pain, the years lost. None of it mattered more than holding his daughter. For the first time, he finally had the truth, and now he had her too. He would never let her go again. When they finally pulled apart, Lily wiped her face and smiled a little. "I told my mom about you. She said she was scared at first. But I think she wants to see you." William nodded, still emotional. "I want to see her too. I have so many questions and so much to say." Lily took his hand and started walking, guiding him through the neighborhood. People watched as they passed, but no one stopped them. Now William was no longer a stranger. Lily led him to the small, broken house where she and Emily lived. William looked at the door and felt nervous, more nervous than he had ever been in his life. But he also felt ready, ready to see Emily again, ready to face the past, ready to begin something new. He looked down at Lily and smiled. "Thank you," he said, "for coming to my door that day." Lily smiled back. "I just wanted to sell candy," she joked. They both laughed a little. Then Lily opened the door and let him inside, step by step into the life he had never known. William sat on the edge of his bed the next morning, staring at the ceiling. His mind had been running all night. He couldn't stop thinking about Lily, about Emily, about everything they had told him. It felt like he had walked into a story that wasn't his, but somehow that belonged to him more than anything else in his life. He needed something solid, something that couldn't be denied. He needed proof, not because he didn't believe them, but because he had been lied to before. Too many times. So he made a decision. That day he met Emily and gently asked if they could take a DNA test. She was quiet for a moment, her eyes searching his. Then she nodded. "If that's what you need, then yes," she said. It wasn't an easy thing for her, but she understood. William scheduled the test for both him and Lily. No one argued, they just wanted the truth to be clear. That same day samples were collected at the clinic. Now all they could do was wait for the results. While they waited, William started spending more time in the neighborhood. At first, it felt strange to walk around streets so different from his world, but soon it became familiar. He showed up with groceries, brought fresh fruit, medicine, and small gifts. He paid for Emily's hospital bills without being asked. He didn't want them to feel like charity. He just wanted to help. Every time he visited, Lily greeted him with a big smile. She would run up to him and show him what she had learned that day, or tell him stories about the people in her neighborhood. William listened to every word. He laughed with her, asked questions, and slowly started to feel like a father. Lily had a strong personality, full of energy and kindness. She asked questions too about his job, his house, his life. William told her everything. And in those moments, sitting on broken chairs in a tiny home, William felt more at peace than he had in years. He didn't need anything more than the time they shared. He learned about the tough days. Lily had lived through nights with no food, days without shoes, times when her mother was too sick to move. But even in those stories, Lily spoke with hope. She didn't complain. She had accepted her life and she had kept fighting. That strength impressed William more than anything else. He also spent more time with Emily. It was awkward at first, like walking over glass. But soon they were talking again. Not about the pain or the past, but about their daughter. They sat together watching Lily play outside, and slowly, to rebuild some of the connection they had lost. William began to see the woman he had fallen in love with all those years ago. Still brave, still kind, still full of love. Every time he left, he promised to come back the next day. And he always did. Emily didn't talk much about what happened with his mother, and William didn't push. There would be time for that later. For now, the most important thing was what they were building together again. Finally, one morning, a sealed envelope arrived at William's mansion. It came from the laboratory. It had been a week since they had taken the DNA samples. He held the envelope in his hands and stared at it. His hands were shaking. This was it, the final proof. The thing that would tell him once and for all if Lily was truly his daughter. He sat down at the table, slowly tore open the envelope and pulled out the paper inside. He read the words carefully. The line was clear. 99.9% match. William felt like the air had been knocked out of him. He dropped the paper on the table, covered his face and cried. All the pain, the waiting, the questions, it all ended with one number. She was his daughter. Not maybe, not possibly, but definitely. His heart, it felt like it was going to break from how full it suddenly was. He had missed so much, but now he had a second chance. And he wasn't going to waste it, not this time. He picked up the phone with shaky hands and called. Emily, she answered after the second ring. Hello, she said. William tried to speak, but his voice cracked. He cleared his throat and tried again. It's me, he said. The results came. She's mine. There was a long pause on the other side. Then Emily whispered, I knew it. William nodded, even though she couldn't see him. You're alive, he said quietly. And our daughter is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. His voice trembled. I don't know how to make up for the time we lost, but I want to try. Emily didn't speak right away, but he could hear her breathing. You don't have to make up for everything, she finally said. Just be here now, and that was enough. William knew there would be challenges ahead. They had so much to figure out, so many conversations still waiting to happen. But right now they had something real. Something true. A connection that no one could take away. The proof didn't lie. Lily was his daughter, and that changed everything. William stood by the front door of the mansion, looking out toward the gate. He had invited Emily to come. After everything they had been through, after the DNA test confirmed what he already knew in his heart, he wanted to see her, he wanted to speak face to face. No more hiding, no more silence. The gate was open and the path was clear. He had waited for this moment, but he didn't know what it would feel like. He was nervous, not angry, not bitter, just full of emotions that had been locked up for years. Then he saw her, Emily, standing just inside the gates. She looked older, thinner, more tired than he remembered, but still her. She wasn't walking yet. She stood in the garden, frozen. William remembered how they used to laugh there, talk about the future, dream about a life together. Now she looked like a stranger, in a place that once belonged to her too. He stepped outside slowly, his eyes already full of tears. Why didn't you tell me? He asked. His voice cracked. Emily looked at him, her eyes filled with pain and years of stories she had kept to herself. She walked forward slowly, step by step, until they stood only a few feet apart. She took a deep breath and began to speak. Her voice was calm but full of emotion. She told him everything. How his mother had threatened her. How she had been told to leave or face something worse. How she had run pregnant and terrified. How she gave birth alone, in a place where no one knew her. How she struggled to raise Lily without help, moving from place to place, always looking over her shoulder. She explained how she thought about telling him so many times, but fear always won. She never knew if it was safe. She never knew if someone was still watching. William listened quietly. He didn't interrupt. He didn't ask questions. He just stood there letting her speak, and slowly started to cry. The more she told him, the more he realized how deep her pain had been, and how alone she had felt. Emily looked down as she spoke. I was scared every day, she said, not just for me, but for Lily. I couldn't take risks. I couldn't afford to make a mistake. William shook his head, tears falling. You should have told me, he said softly. I would have protected you. I would have protected her. Emily nodded. I know, but I didn't know who I could trust. I had nothing, William. No money, no home, no support. just a baby in fear. Her voice trembled. William reached out and held her hand gently. "You're not alone anymore," he said, "I swear. You'll never have to hide again. I'll take care of both of you. You won't have to worry about food, or medicine, or anything. You've done enough. You don't have to carry this by yourself anymore." Emily looked at him, surprised by how soft his voice was. She had expected anger. Instead, he offered peace. For the first time in years, she felt safe. Safe enough to cry. She leaned against him and let the tears fall. Inside the mansion, Lily stood by the hallway, watching through the glass door. She had come with her mother, but stayed back to give them space. She didn't know exactly what they would say to each other. She only knew it was something big, something important. She watched her mother speak. She saw William listening, wiping his face, nodding. Then she saw them step closer. Her mother reached out. William opened his arms. They hugged. Lily's eyes filled with tears. She'd spent her whole life wondering about the man in the photo, the man no one talked about. Now he was real, and he wasn't angry. He cared. He wanted to be part of their lives. It was hard to explain what she felt, but it was something deep. Relief maybe, or something better. For the first time, the silence that had always surrounded her family was gone. The lies were over. The truth was standing there hugging in the garden. And she didn't feel broken anymore. She felt whole, like everything was finally making sense. The three of them sat in the garden afterward, not saying much at first. William brought drinks, and they sat in the same spot where years ago he and Emily had planned their future. The place hadn't changed much, but their lives had. William looked at both of them, taking in every detail. Emily looked tired but at peace. Lily looked happy, still quiet but clearly watching everything. He reached for their hands and held them. "I want to make new memories," he said. "Not just for us, but for Lily. She deserves that you both do." Emily smiled weakly and Lily nodded. For years their lives had been built around survival. Now there was a chance to build something new. It wouldn't be easy. There was a lot of pain still sitting between them. But the hardest part, the silence, the fear, the lies, was finally behind them. They had faced the truth. And the truth didn't tear them apart. It brought them together. The garden wasn't just a memory anymore. It was a beginning. As the sun began to set, William stood and helped Emily to her feet. Lily joined them and they walked toward the house, together for the first time in a long while. No one felt like a visitor. No one felt like they didn't belong. William opened the door and they stepped inside. It wasn't just a house anymore. It was a place where a broken family could start again. Lily walked ahead and looked around the mansion, no longer in awe, but with calm. She turned and looked at her mother and William, standing side by side. They were talking slowly, carefully, like people who were still learning each other again. Lily's heart was full. It wasn't perfect. Nothing ever was. But it was real, it was honest, and that was enough. The past had been painful, but they had survived it. Now the future was theirs to shape together. The truth had finally won. And in that truth they found peace. Lily moved into William's home, just a few days after the meeting, in the garden. Her belongings were few. A small bag of clothes, her candy tray, and a worn-out photo of her mother, holding her as a baby. William carried her things up to one of the guest rooms himself. But before she could settle in, he said, "Let me show you everything." He gave her a full tour of the mansion, pointing out each room with a smile. There was the kitchen, where he used to bake with his mother when he was a child. The library that no one had touched in years. The music room, still holding instruments covered in dust. Lily listened closely and asked questions about everything. Her eyes lit up with curiosity as she moved through each space. It didn't feel like a stranger's house anymore. William told her she could choose any room she wanted, As her own, she picked the one with the biggest window, where the sunlight came in during the morning. That same night, Emily arrived and her life also began to change. William made sure Emily had a room close to Lily's. She didn't have many things either. A few clothes, an old purse, and some medicines. At first, she hesitated to unpack, unsure if she really belonged there. But William told her clearly, "This is your home now." No more running slowly, Emily began to feel safe. She still moved quietly through the house, but her shoulders didn't seem so heavy anymore. Lily, full of energy, brought a new kind of life to the mansion. She helped the kitchen staff bake cookies, played music in the living room, and even organized the books in the library. William noticed the way the quiet rooms that began to sound different. The place that had once been filled only with silence and memories was now filled with noise. Good noise, laughter, voices, and sometimes even music from Lily's small speaker. Emily joined them for meals every day. Her voice returned little by little. She smiled more, she laughed. The mansion, which once felt like a cage of the past, was becoming something new. One afternoon, Lily asked if she could put her drawings on the wall in the hallway. William said yes without a second thought. Soon, the elegant halls were filled with colorful papers, showing simple but happy scenes. Stick figures holding hands, houses under a sun, and one picture of 3 people with a heart. Between them, that one made William stop and stare. "Is this us?" he asked. Lily nodded proudly. "Yes. It's our family." Emily saw it too and said nothing. But the look in her eyes said everything. William bought her new paints and paper the next day. The staff in the house began treating Lily and Emily like they had always belonged there. No one questioned it. William made sure of that. Sometimes in the evenings, they would all sit in the garden with cups of tea or juice and talk about simple things. The weather, food, old memories. William loved those moments. It wasn't about luxury anymore, it was about closeness. About being together for the first time in years. He didn't feel alone. One night, the 3 of them were having dinner at a small, round table in the kitchen. It wasn't a big fancy meal, just something simple. Rice, beans, and roasted chicken. Emily had helped cook and Lily had set the table. They laughed as Lily told a story about someone in her old neighborhood. WHO believed cats could talk. William chuckled and shook his head. Then, as the laughter calmed, he picked up his glass of juice, cleared his throat gently and said, "To the lies that fell, and the truth that set us free." Emily looked at him, then reached across the table and held his hand. Her eyes were warm, full of emotion to the truth. She said softly. Lily smiled and rested her head on William's shoulder. It was quiet for a few seconds. No one spoke, but the silence felt good. Full, not empty. It wasn't the same silence that once filled the house, like a heavy blanket. This was a peaceful kind of quiet, the kind that made you feel safe, understood, and finally home. From that night on, everything felt more real. Lily started calling William Dad, without needing permission or warning. It just slipped out naturally one morning. When she asked him to help her with something, he stopped in place when he heard it, then smiled wider than he had in years. Emily saw it too. A soft smile on her face told him everything he needed to know. They didn't need to talk about the past anymore, unless they wanted to. The future was more important now. They spent weekends together, going on walks, playing games, or just relaxing at home. William taught Lily how to play chess. Lily taught him how to make paper flowers. Emily read books aloud in the living room. While they listened, they were building something new, something they never thought they could have again. And even though there were still things to heal from, and days where old pain would visit, they always had each other to face it with. That made all the difference, that made them a family. The mansion, once so quiet and cold, now felt like a true home. The halls no longer echoed with loneliness. Now they echoed with laughter, with voices calling from room to room, with the sound of life. There were messes sometimes, paint on the table, toys on the stairs, papers left in strange places. But William didn't mind. In fact, he welcomed it. Every small sign of life reminded him of what they had gained. Emily smiled more often. Her face looked lighter, like a weight had finally been lifted. Lily danced around the house with joy, sometimes for no reason at all. William watched them and felt something deep in his chest. Not just happiness, but peace. A kind of peace he had never known before. He had lost them once, but now he had them back. And this time he wasn't letting go. The mansion wasn't just a building anymore. It was filled with love. And even after everything that had happened, that love had survived. It had endured through time, through lies, through pain. It had never gone away. That night, William couldn't sleep. He had gone to bed as usual, but his mind kept moving. Every time he closed his eyes, memories came back. Old ones from the past, and new ones from the last few weeks. He got up quietly, careful not to wake anyone, and walked downstairs. The house was silent, but not in the empty way it used to be. It was the quiet of people sleeping, resting safe. He made a cup of tea and sat in the living room. The lights were dim, just enough to see the pictures Lily had drawn, still taped to the wall. He sipped slowly, thinking about how different everything had become. A few weeks ago he was living in silence, surrounded by memories he thought were all he had left. Now the house was full. He didn't know how to describe the feeling in his chest, but it was strong. Peace, maybe gratitude. Something close to joy. He looked around the room and felt like this was exactly where he was supposed to be. He sat there deep in thought. He heard soft footsteps behind him. He turned his head and saw Emily standing in the doorway. She looked sleepy, like she had just gotten out of bed. But something in her eyes told him she hadn't been able to rest either. She walked over slowly and sat beside him on the couch. Neither of them spoke at first. It wasn't uncomfortable. It felt like they were both taking a moment to understand everything. Then Emily turned to him and asked quietly, "Do you forgive me?" William looked at her for a long second, his expression gentle. He didn't need to think about the answer. He took her hand and held it in his. "I've loved you all along," he said. "I never stopped." Emily's eyes filled with tears and she nodded. There was nothing more to say. The pain of the past was real. But so was the love. William hadn't forgotten what had happened, but he had chosen what they had most together in silence. They heard the soft sound of footsteps again. This time smaller, lighter. Lily came slowly down the stairs, her eyes half closed, wearing her pajamas. She looked around, confused for a second, then saw her parents on the couch. Without a word, she walked over and climbed up beside Emily, curling up with her head on her mother's lap. Emily stroked her hair softly and Lily closed her eyes. William smiled and reached out to gently touch Lily's back. The moment was simple, but it meant everything. A few weeks ago he didn't even know she existed. Now here she was, sleeping peacefully in his home. His daughter, his family. He looked at Emily and then at Lily. Everything had changed. The past had been full of lies, fear, and separation. But it had led them to this moment. They had found each other again. Easy. But they had made it through. William leaned back on the couch and sighed. For the first time in years, he felt truly calm. The clock ticked softly in the background. William looked down at Lily, then at Emily, and thought about how close he had come to missing all of this. If Lily hadn't knocked on his door that day, everything might still be hidden. He would still believe Emily was gone. He would still be mourning a life he thought had ended. But one simple moment had changed everything. A knock at the gate, a little girl with a candy tray. That was all it took. Now Lily was here, asleep, safe, loved. Emily was beside him, strong, brave. still fighting to protect the child she had raised alone. William thought about the years they had lost, but he didn't want to dwell on that anymore. The future mattered more. They had time now, time to laugh, to grow, to be a family. And he wasn't going to waste it. The past would always be part of their story, but it wouldn't define them. What defined them now was this: being together, being honest, and choosing love. Emily rested her head gently on William's shoulder, and he leaned his head against hers. Lily was asleep between them, breathing slowly. Everything felt right in that moment. They didn't need grand gestures or big promises. They just needed each other. William knew that life wouldn't always be perfect. There would still be challenges. But they had already faced the worst and come out stronger. He looked at Emily, Lily, and felt something he hadn't felt in a long time: hope. A real steady kind of hope. The kind that came from truth, not fantasy. They had faced lies and fear, and they had made it to the other side. William took another sip of his tea. Now cold, but he didn't mind. The warmth wasn't in the cup anymore. It was in the room and the people beside him. They sat like that for a long time, not needing to talk. Just being there was enough in that still, quiet moment. William knew this was home. Not just the house, but the people in it. The past couldn't be changed, and William had accepted that the lies had caused pain. But the truth had brought them back together. And now they had a second chance. Not everyone gets that. He wasn't going to waste it. He had a daughter to raise. He had a woman to love. He had a family. As he looked at the two people sleeping beside him, he thought again about the first time he saw Lily at his gate. A girl selling candy, hoping to help her sick mum. That one moment had led to everything. Life may have hidden the truth from him for years, but it couldn't hide forever. When love is real, it finds its way back. It pushes through fear, through lies, through time. It keeps going until it reaches the place it belongs. And now, for the first time in so long, William knew exactly where that place was. It was here with Emily, with Lily. In this house that had once been full of silence. The truth lived here now, and so did love. Finally, we've reached the end of this story. I'm extremely happy that you've made it this far. Thank you very much for watching. Comment below what you thought, and what was the best or worst part. Don't forget to subscribe. Until next time.